Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Michael McNutt, Director of Education and Events for WEDI, and welcome to our virtual spotlight Standards Updates with NCPDP. It's my pleasure to introduce Robert Tennant, Vice President of Federal Affairs with WEDI.
Thank you, Michael, and let me add my welcome. This is the fourth in our series of Standards Development Organization updates, and we're absolutely delighted to have experts from NCPDP join us today. So for those that may not know too much about WEDI, I will say that we've been around a while. We were formed during the first Bush administration, where then Secretary of Health and Human Services, Dr. Lewis Sullivan, realized firsthand the challenges that providers and plans had in exchanging data. And so he called in the leaders in the healthcare industry and charged them with developing an opportunity to standardize, to harmonize, to make more efficient data standards. So that led to a series of reports put out by then called the Working Group for Electronic Data Interchange. And those reports were developed into legislative language, which made its way into the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, better known as HIPAA. WEDI was named in the law as an advisor to HHS, and we've served that ever since. We have close relationships with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Office for Civil Rights, and the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT. So how do we do our work? Well, we do our work through one word, and that is consensus. Our goal is to bring together various stakeholders. You can see here at the bottom, we represent everyone from practitioners and hospitals on the provider side, including labs, to health plans, government entities. In fact, we have CMS and ONC on our boards, as well as the SDOs all serve on our board as well. We have clearinghouses and other vendors. And so we work through things like work groups and our listservs. We have a lot of open public forums like the one you're attending today. We develop testimony and responses to RFIs and proposed rules. Again, all with the eye towards bringing stakeholders together to get things done. And a lot of that work is done directly in our work groups. And I remind folks that when you join WEDI as an organization, every one of your employees becomes a WEDI member. So if you are interested in perhaps standards, but you have colleagues that work in the area of privacy and security, they are more than welcome to join our work groups and task groups. We have a new one formed called the No Surprises Act Task Group, which is dealing with the many complexities and challenges associated with that piece of legislation. We also have a new one on health equity, and I would encourage you, if you have an interest in that, to join that work group. You can go in through our work group community homepage or email Samantha Holvey directly to get more involved. And I think, you know, if we're to tag one line on WEDI, and that would be the collective voice of health IT. Really, our goal is to act as a convener to bring the industry together like we're doing today, to learn, to educate, and also to advocate. So our goal is to allow folks to use WEDI as a platform to share their opinions, their views, and perhaps their solutions. And really, that's what we're all about. If you want to learn more about us, of course, go to our website, www.wedi.org. And with that, I wanted to remind folks, if you don't know already, we are holding a member position advisory, what used to be known as a PAG, a policy advisory group. That's been morphed a little bit into an MPA. And it's specifically on the CAQH core and X12 proposals to NCVHS. So it's an important opportunity for us to bring the industry together to talk about these proposals and help shape the discussion at the NCHS hearing, which is now scheduled for January 18 and 19 of 2023. So again, free to WEDI members, I would encourage you all to sign up and share your perspectives on this. I will say we do have a survey out in the field as well on both the X12 and ZQH core proposals. I again would encourage you to fill out that survey and share your thoughts. For today's program, the chat is your best friend. If you have comments, if you've got questions, that is your venue to put those forward. Terry and Margaret may be able to answer them on the fly, but if not, we'll set aside a little bit of time at the end and answer those questions then. As always, the slides and recording will be emailed to you after the event, so feel free to share that with your colleagues in your organization. And with that, I am absolutely delighted to introduce our two speakers for today. Margaret Weicker, Vice President, Standards Development at NCPDP, and Terry Fortin, Senior Manager, Standards Development at NCPDP. Thank you both for joining us today. We look forward to hearing more about the standards work you're working on.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you, everyone who joined us today. I know everybody's super busy these days, so thank you for taking an hour out of your day to join us. There we go. NCPDP, or the National Council for Prescription Drug Programs, is a nonprofit multi-stakeholder forum for developing and promoting industry and business solutions that improve patient safety and health outcomes, while also decreasing costs. The work of the organization is accomplished through its members who bring expertise and diverse perspectives to the forum. As an ANSI-accredited standards developer, NCPDP uses a consensus building process to create national standards for real-time electronic exchange of healthcare information. Through our collaborative problem-solving forums, we also develop and standardize best practices for product labeling, dosing instructions, patient communication and education, and other practices important in safeguarding patients. Our data products developed by industry for industry help support the important work of our members. NCPDP has 33 standards. We will briefly discuss each one of those today. 4 of those standards were developed with other ASD or SDOs. 3 have been named in HIPAA, and 2 have been named in the Medicare Modernization Act. Also, one of those is a requirement for a ONC certified VHR. We have a data dictionary that includes the names of every data element in our standards, their definition, data attributes, as well as other information. We also have an external code list, or we call it an ECL, and it has the values and other information on all the data elements which have code sets in our standards. Our external code list includes lists that NCPDP owns and maintains, what we commonly call an internal code list. And then we also point to external code lists within our ECL. An example of that would be ICD-10 codes, zip codes, anything like that, which another entity owns and maintains that are used in the standard. NCPDP's cornerstone electronic standard is the telecommunications standard, which was originally developed in 1989. Since that time, the standard has evolved from a claim billing fixed file format to a variable format supporting multiple transaction types and is currently being migrated to a JSON syntax. The standard supports multiple transactions, eligibility verification, predetermination of benefits, claim and billing claim and service billing, prior authorization instituted or initiated by a pharmacist, as well as information reporting. Version D.0 is named in HIPAA currently, and we are awaiting the release of an NPRM to have version 6 F6 named. 25 new versions of the telecommunications standard have been published since the release of the telecom version D0 in July of 2007. These published versions were the result of 136 data element request forms, or DERFs, as they're called in NCPDP. You can think of them as a change request. We also had 156 DERFs requesting changes to our external code list, and all of these were submitted by members and approved by the members of NCPDP. We have added 242 data elements, and 75 data elements have been sunsetted. We have 152 instances of existing data elements that had values added, redefined, or renamed. We also added 211 reject codes, as well as sunset 125 reject codes. I'm not going to go through all the changes today because we would be here for several hours. I'm just going to talk about the notable changes. One of the biggest is probably the move to an 8-digit IIN, or issuer identification number. This replaces the BIN, as most people know it today, and it's used primarily for routing. The BIN today is 6 digits. The IIN will be 8 digits. The IIN and BIN are owned by or follow an ISO standard, and they decided to increase the length of the field because they were running out of numbers. So we've developed guidance of what to do when you may get an 8-digit IIN, as they are being assigned today, and then what to do in the future when you start getting the F6, which can incorporate the 8-digit IIN. The product identifier length has been increased to 40 characters. It was 19. This was primarily done to support the UDI-DI. A new field called total prescribed quantity remaining was added to controlled substance for controlled substance use. The field allows the processor to identify the accumulated prescribed quantity remaining. A specific field for the prescriber's DEA number was added to support the submission of the prescriber's DEA number for controlled substance claims. It is used to validate prescriptive authority. We also enhanced our response other related benefit data detail, and it was added to the E1, or the eligibility transaction. The segment was added to support CMS's enhancements to their eligibility data being provided to the transaction facilitator for Medicare Part D beneficiaries. We added 14 fields to support plan benefit parameters. The electronic communication of these plan benefit parameters reduced calls to provider help desk, where the same information is verbally provided today. It also leverages the standard to communicate the detail, which will expedite patient access to care, lower administrative costs, and facilitate compliance with plan policies. We also added support for RIMS, as well as PD&P reporting, and we added 4 unique fields to associate a partial field claim billing or service billing to the original claim bill. We also made changes to tax type amounts, which so you could support all tax types versus just sales tax. So all tax types are now reported. We added 8 new fields to the claim to the response claim segment to support the identification of the reasons for formulary alternatives and the identification of those required treatment. We created a new transaction field for payer identification for information reporting. These fields will allow all of the payer identification for an information reporting transaction to be located in one place versus in multiple different segments. We also added alerts for the 340B status. Dollar amounts were increased. The original dollar amounts in the zero only supported $999,999.99. Since that time, we have seen drugs over $1 million, and they are happening much more frequently today. So we expanded all of our dollar amount fields except one of them. Also, we allowed multiple patient identifiers to be recorded, where today there's only one identifier allowed, and it's for a very specific reason. We modified the situation and also allowed multiples to be recorded. And then we increased the prescriber and provider ID fields in length from 15 to 35. That was done to support the increases we've seen in state license numbers, as well as to promote harmonization of the fillings across our other standards. So they are all now in sync. Some of the benefits in regard to the F6 telecom standard, we modified the coordination of benefit fields and segments to better support the maturing COB environment, as well as to assist pharmacy providers and downstream payers. We made enhancements to response segments that replace or supplement text messaging today with codified information to better support workflow automation. We made enhancements to our eligibility transaction and claim response transactions to provide better benefit identification, as well as to assist in coordination of benefits. We modified the request claim segment to provide additional information to promote and improve patient safety, for example, opioid prescribing. We also made enhancements to the prescriber segment to improve the validation of prescriptive authority and reduce the point of service conflicts and expedite patient access to care. As I said earlier, we modified the tax amount fields to support all taxes. We have increased or expanded the product ID field to support the UBI, as well as potential other increases in identifiers. We harmonized our demographic attributes across all of our standards. We harmonized PA numbered links and attributes associated with that with the X12 data elements. We created an intermediary segment for RIMS processing, and we required identification of the support center help desk in a response transaction to streamline communication and claim resolution process. We also removed the controlled substance reporting from the standard and made it its own standard, so it could be on a separate regulatory timeline than the telecom standard itself. Some additional benefits include, as I said, coverage under prescription benefits of new innovative drug therapies by increasing the dollar amount fields. Patient safety processes are enhanced through enabling the pharmacy and the prescriber system automation and interoperability of clinical information. Patient access to care has been expedited through workflow interoperability, as well as IT development, testing, implementation, and development burdens are reduced. This is a result of eliminating intermediary qualified message solutions in prior versions and enhancing the use of the other related benefit information segment. The next standard I want to talk about is the batch standard. It uses the functionality, syntax, formatting, data set, and rules of a telecom standard, and it basically wraps a telecom transaction in a detailed record with a header and trailer for the entire file. Version 1.2 of the standard has been named in HIPAA, and we are awaiting the release of the NPRM to have version 1.5 named. The major change to this standard was to change the length of the transaction reference number. It was increased to match the length of the reconciliation ID field, which is in the telecom standard. And this particular number is used to tie the request and the response back together from a provider perspective. The benefits of the new version enhances the interoperability of the documentation changes that we made to further clarify which entities are allowed to use the standard and under which situations. And then it also reduces administrative costs by having the batch standard aligned with the telecom standard. The subrogation implementation guide for batch standard version 1.0 was released in October of 2017. We are asking that this standard be named in HIPAA. Today, the Medicaid subrogation implementation guide is named in HIPAA, and we are asking to have that replaced with this guide. This guide was developed to support industry needs, primarily other payers besides Medicaid wanted to use a standardized format for subrogation, where today it's done in proprietary formats in multitudes of different ways. It's used in a batch mode. It also uses the telecom standard implementation guide at its base. So when I mentioned the batch standard earlier, basically the subrogation standard follows that, where you have a header and a detail, a header and a footer, and then each claim is wrapped in a envelope, so to speak, that supports the detail data. The benefits improves transparency through accuracy of reporting pricing between trading partners. It does reduce administrative costs and increases operability by providing a single standard that can be used by a wide variety of payers. Script. Many of you may have heard of this standard. Version 1.0 was created in 1997. The script standard was created to facilitate the electronic transfer of prescription data between pharmacies, prescribers, facilities, intermediaries, and payers. The current standard supports transactions regarding new prescriptions, prescription changes, renewal requests, prescription fill status notification, and prescription cancellation. Enhancements have been added for drug utilization review, GUR, so to speak, alerts, as well as formulary information. We've also added transactions for medication history, as well as for a facility, which is primarily long-term care nursing home, to notify a pharmacy of the resident's information. Enhancements have also been added to the electronic prior authorizations, as well as RIMS has been added and updated, as well as service referral requests. And as I mentioned earlier, script is named in MMA. We've asked to have version 2022-011 name that would replace the current version named in MMA. And as I also stated, script is also part of the ONC requirements for certified PHR. Version 2022-011 is backward compatible, which is very important. The key enhancements are extensibility. We redesigned some drug product groupings. We added the observation element, which is where you put clinical type of data to the RIMS transactions. We added a prohibit renewal request to 2 responses. Push or unsolicited options were added to the transfer, and then we made modifications to the structure and codified procedure direction. We also added support for general procedure codes, RX barcodes, patient conditions, We added field sex assigned at birth, therapeutic substitution indicators, patient pronouns, multiple party communications, and also the message flag indicator field. The last two bullets are primarily done to support the long-term care industry. The formulary and benefit standard is the communication of formulary and benefit information from payers, which includes health plans and PBMs, to prescribers via their technology vendor systems. The formulary and benefit standard is benefit specific. It is not patient specific information. So the products of the patient's benefit plan that considered to be on formulary or off formulary. Alternative products for those that could be preferred are also available, as well as any type of limitations regarding the patient's benefits, such as prior authorization would be required if a certain drug was prescribed. And also the copay for one product versus another was also available. The formulary benefit is made up of 4 file types. Version 3.0 is named in MMA. Version 6.0 is currently under ballot. We expect to adjudicate that ballot and finalize that version at our November 4th group meeting. We then in turn will ask that Medicare HHS adopt version 6 to replace version 3 in MMA. Version 6 is a hybrid, so to speak, of version 3 and version 5.5. It improves backwards compatibility and reduces file size. As you can imagine, some of these files can be very huge. We added deductible support. We added a drug tier file, and we also added some ETL values to the data element. We removed cross-reference files, unused drug identifiers, approximate drug cost, several copay fields that just aren't seen in plan benefit anymore, as well as then the whole process. So now I'm going to turn it over to Terry, so she'll talk about our real-time prescription benefit standard, as well as several other standards. Terry?
Thank you, Margaret. The real-time prescription benefit, or also known as RTPB standard, was first published in January of 2020, and it is for the exchange of patient-specific formulary and benefit information between providers, both prescribers and pharmacies, and PBM processors. It differs from formulary and benefit in that it is real-time, and also it provides patient-level information, whereas Margaret explained formulary and benefit is benefit level. It is designed to communicate product coverage, any coverage restrictions, any alternative products and pharmacy types, and estimated patient out-of-pocket costs. The estimated patient cost on an RTPB transaction is a moment in time, so it could differ from what the patient pays at the pharmacy. There could be changes in patient accumulators between the prescriber RTPB inquiry and the dispensing at the pharmacy. The standard is designed to support 2 different syntaxes, both EDI and XML. Next. Since the standard meets CMS's requirements related to the advancement of price transparency and interoperability as required in the Support Act, NCPDP has requested CMS in August 2021, we sent the request, to adopt version 12 as the industry-wide electronic standard for real-time benefit tool. The standard also aligns with the Patients Over Paperwork initiative. The RTP standard, next, Margaret, sorry. The RTP standard is comprised of a request and response transaction. The request may be submitted by any entity with an IIN and includes information which identifies the patient, their prescription insurance, the product, the prescriber, and their preferred pharmacy. The response can provide information about whether the patient is eligible and whether or not their preferred pharmacy is a network pharmacy. For the product submitted on the request, the response can provide information regarding its coverage status, any restrictions, up to 5 alternative pharmacy types, such as mail order or specialty, and the estimated patient financial responsibility amount. The response also supports communicating up to 10 alternative products and the patient financial responsibility amounts for those products. For providers participating in accountable care organizations, the standard also supports communication of estimated plan cost or estimated combined plan and cost savings when this information is permitted to be communicated by the plan. Next. Next is our audit standard. It's used between auditors and providers to facilitate the communication of requests, responses, and final outcomes for both desktop claim and in-store audits. It is an electronic solution to a paper-based process. It is a batch transaction, which includes the basic functions of requests, acknowledgements, responses, finding appeals, and change requests. Next is benefit integration. It is used by benefit partners for pharmacy, major medical, dental, behavioral health, and lab to communicate data about patient deductible and out-of-pocket accumulators for the administration of integrated benefits. The 2 syntaxes of EDI and XML are supported, and the transactions may be batch or real-time. If the benefit partners each hold the accumulators, then dual book of records is used. A single book of records is used and one of the trading partners maintains the accumulator data. Next. Our billing unit standard provides a consistent and well-defined billing unit for use in pharmacy transactions, which results in time savings and accuracy in billing and reimbursement. There are 3 billing units to describe our drug products: each, grams, and milliliters. The drug data compendia utilize this standard to determine the appropriate billing unit assignment for drug products listed in their files, and those files are then used by pharmacies, prescribers, and PBM processors. Next. The Financial Information Reporting, or FIR standard, is used by Medicare Part D plans and their processes to share financial information when a member moves from one plan to another. This information allows the new PBM to accurately process claims and attribute plan benefits and status, plan balances and status when reporting to the plan sponsor. The transactions are real-time and include an inquiry, update, and exchange. Next. The manufacturer rebate standard is used by pharmacy management organizations, or PMOs, to pharmaceutical industry contracting organization, PICOs, for reporting or to submit rebate information. The information includes product utilization, plan membership, formulary information, market definitions, and reconciliation in 5 corresponding fixed length flat files. Next. The Medicaid Pharmacy Encounters Reporting Standard is our newest standard and was published in July of this year. It was developed to meet an industry need for managed care organizations and PBMs to submit Medicaid pharmacy claim information to state Medicaid agencies after the claim was adjudicated. The detailed drug and utilization data is used by Medicaid agencies to perform program management and oversight. It is a batch fixed length file with header, detail, and trailer records. There's a detail record for every claim, and it is based on telecommunication standard version D.0. Next. The Medicaid subrogation standard provides a standardized method for Medicaid agencies to pursue reimbursement from other payers when Medicaid has reimbursed the pharmacy for covered services, since they are the payer of last resort. As Margaret mentioned earlier, version 3.0 of the standard is currently adopted under HIPAA. Next. The Medical Rebates Data Submission Standard supports rebate submissions by health plans to multiple drug manufacturers for drugs administered in a medical setting. The benefits for this standard include faster processing and payments for rebates, increased efficiency and accuracy of data submission and payments, one standardized format, consistent billing units, a decrease in audit adjustments, and consistent contract negotiations for data layout. It can be either a fixed length or delimited format, and it is a batch file with header, detail, and trailer records. Next. The operating rules for connectivity provides consistent implementation and connectivity rules for electronic exchanges of information in pharmacy and electronic prescribing transactions using NCPDP and X12 transactions, or X12 standards. Technology independent requirements and recommendations are described, and the application of Application Programming Interface, API, and Simple Object Access Protocol, SOAP technologies are discussed in detail within the guide. Next. The pharmacy and/or combination ID card standard is based on the ANSI-accredited 284 Information Technology Identification Card, Healthcare Identification Cards, and provides guidelines for entities that produce member ID cards for use in the pharmacy industry. It gives a consistent and efficient means for pharmacy team members to identify prescription claim processing information, which then improves service levels, reduces help desk calls, and allows more time to spend on providing patient care. In January of this year, changes were made to accommodate regulatory requirements related to ID cards as imposed by the No Surprises Act. Next. Margaret, next. The post-adjudication standard is used by client groups, PBMs, fiscal agents, vendors, and administrative oversight organizations to communicate patient pharmacy transaction data after claim adjudication in order to supply detailed drug or utilization information. It may also be used to supply information required for transition fill processing when a Medicare Part D sponsor changes processors or PBMs. There are 3 file layouts: history, utilization, and transition fill. It is a batch fixed length file with header, detail record, and trailer records, and there is a detail record for every claim. Next. The Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, or PDMP reporting standard, supports the reporting between dispensing providers and PDMP facilitators to support drug reporting requirements. It can also be used to report information after a supplemental to a claim submission. It is a batch file with batch wrappers containing header, detail, and trailer records. The NCPDP data record found within the detail record contains 1 or more required drug reporting request or response transactions. Next. The prescription transfer standard is for the electronic bulk transfers of prescriptions between pharmacies. There are 2 formats defined in the standard. The fixed length format is used to transfer open refillable prescriptions or a snapshot of the prescription from one mail order pharmacy to another. The variable length format is used to transfer open and historical prescriptions or a full historical file of all prescription history when there is a pharmacy closure, a change in ownership, or a system conversion in the retail and long-term care pharmacy settings. It is a batch file with header, sending, receiving pharmacy record, sending, receiving pharmacy total record, and trailer record. Next. The prior authorization transfer standard is utilized for the electronic bulk transfer of prior authorization records between payers and processors when transitioning clients or performing system, database, or platform changes. It provides continuity and coverage for plan members who have received a prior authorization approval. It also can be used to communicate the original business intent of the prior authorization. It is also a batch fixed length file with header, detail, and trailer records. Next. Our product identifier standard provides guidance for the consistent formatting and utilization of product identifiers used in our standards. It ensures the product identifier changes do not adversely affect patient safety, financial processes involving drug products, and healthcare applications using the identifier. The standard includes guidelines for reformatting product identifiers, including NDCs, UPCs, NITRICs, and G10s into an 11-digit format that can be used in our NCPDP transactions. Next. The retiree drug subsidy standard is used by CMS retiree drug subsidy plan sponsors and their PBM processors to communicate retiree level accumulations to another plan sponsor or processor. It provides the accumulation of the gross retiree cost, threshold reduction, and limit reduction to determine the drug cost for each retiree. It is a batch fixed length file with header, detail, and trailer records, and there is a detail record for every retiree with data to be transferred. Next. The specialized standard is used for transmitting information in an XML format between prescribers, providers, payers, pharmacies, and other entities for census, query, and central fill functions. For census, it conveys the status of the patient, including payer and demographic information. For the query function, it is used to exchange clinical health information such as allergies, conditions, and medical histories. A pharmacy may also use it to request a new prescription from a prescriber. The central fill functions include transactions for inventory lists. Next slide, Margaret. The transactions include inventory list, product inquiry response, order request, order completion, order cancellation, and manifest. Next. The Specialty Pharmacy Data Reporting Standard supports the submission of dispensing data by specialty pharmacies to drug manufacturers and data aggregators. Data helps support patient service programs, validate contractual obligations, and provides manufacturers with an understanding of when and where their products are being dispensed. The benefits are faster processing and payments, increased efficiency and accuracy, one standardized format, increased data quality, and improved data correction process, as well as consistent contract negotiations for data layout. It is a batch file in pipe delimited format and includes header, detail, and trailer records. Next. The state Medicaid provider file outlines a standardized file layout for provider files produced by state Medicaid agencies for other entities. It eliminated a barrier to the implementation of the requirements for providers contracted with the state MCO to be enrolled with the state Medicaid agency. It is a one-way communication in a batch file in pipe delimited format with header, detail, and trailer records. The structured and codified SIG format establishes a convention for the consistent expression of directions for use and standards supporting electronic prescribing. It is intended to facilitate communication between prescribers and pharmacists, improve the efficiency of prescribing and dispensing activities, and help reduce the opportunity for errors. The standard contains elements, fields, and values directly related to the prescriber's instructions for use for the patient. Now I'm turning it back over to Margaret to finish the rest of our standards.
Thank you, Terry. The next standard is our Uniform Healthcare Payer Data Standard. It was developed and supported by NATO in regard to the all payer claim databases that state agencies or state-sponsored healthcare payer collection initiative support. It has statistical reporting, evaluation of healthcare, and it does meet the reporting requirements that NATO had at that point in time. It was a batch file as well. Our universal claim form, that is the paper claim form. And yes, paper claims are still submitted in pharmacy today, though very little of them. The UCF is what we call it, and it was originally created in 1980. This was NCPDP's first standard, so to speak, even though it is paper. We have forms that support the telecommunications standard version 5.1, D0, and we have a claim form specifically for workers' compensation and property and casualty. We still support 5.1 because, as we all know, not everybody's covered under HIPAA, specifically workers' comp, property and casualty, and some of those entities did not migrate to version D0. They're still on 5.1. So that's UCF. We have an XML standard implementation guide. This just basically provides the general transaction information for any of our standards that are developed in an XML format. Earlier, I mentioned that we had 4 standards that were developed collaboratively with 4 other ASBs or SBOs. One of them is the exchanging inventory information between manufacturers and specialty pharmacies implementation guide. Is that real fast? It was jointly developed with X12. It shares pharmacy inventory data among stakeholders using the X12 852 product activity report specifications. It is used to advise a trading partner of inventory sales, and other product activity information. We also have developed several with HL7. One of them is the functional profiles. It facilitates the capture and sharing of point-of-care prescription and medication-related clinical data by the EHR system in a standard manner. There are 3 profiles. One is the electronic prescribing functional profile, the pharmacist provider functional profile, as well as the standalone electronic prescription EHR functional profile. It specifies the functional requirements needed to support messaging among healthcare entities needing medication-related information. We also have what's called the Pharmacist Fleet Care Plan, jointly developed with HL7. It is the exchange of consensus-driven, prioritized medication-related activities, plans, and goals for an individual needing care. It is based on templates in the HL7 implementation guide for the CCDA release 2.1. And there is also a version that is based on the FHIR R4 release. This pharmacist care plan serves 2 needs. It supports the Medicare Part B Enhanced Medicare Therapy Management or MTM program, and it provides the documentation necessary for medication and medication-related issues in a value-based payment model. Recently, we created a specialty medication enrollment implementation guide and have recently added patient consent to that guide, which was balloted, and now we're going through the comments submitted at HL7 in regard to the adding a patient consent to this guide. It's the exchange of patient demographic, clinical, and coverage data that supports the fulfillment of specialty medication prescriptions by a pharmacy, as well as enrollment of a patient into related support programs offered by parties such as hub vendors and pharmaceutical manufacturers. And that would conclude our presentation for today. Are there any questions?
Yeah, as a reminder, please enter your questions in the chat. And while folks are thinking of them, I've got a few. And the first one is one I like to ask all SDOs. And can you describe a little bit of how you get various stakeholder groups to get involved in the standards development process? How do you do your work at NCPDP?
Well, our membership consists of a wide variety of stakeholders in the pharmacy services sector of healthcare. So we do have instances where we need a specific type of entity to join a call or to participate. And what we do is we look at possible associations that those people might belong to. We ask other members, hey, do you know anybody that belongs or that knows anything about a certain type of thing? We would send out notices that we're looking for a specific type of entity to help us build a certain thing or provide information. We do that via several communications, via our what we call our Now, which is a weekly newsletter type of thing. And we also use a tool, what we call the collaborative, where anybody, member or non-member, can join. Most of our development work is done through our task groups, and every task group that NCPDP has a specific location within our collaborative website that contains the information on meetings, agendas, developing work, that type of thing. So we put the word out in regard to that. So anybody can join the collaborative. You don't have to be a member of NCPDP. We welcome all to the table and appreciate the efforts and expertise that they bring to NCPDP.
Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate that. We got one question that came in through a direct message. Is there a plan to support RESTful APIs and the JSON format for interoperability?
Yes. In fact, when the JSON for telecom model is developed, we've had some testing done by companies, and they actually used it, created APIs. I don't know if they did the RESTful piece of that, but we do know that it works in the API mode, so to speak. Any of our XML standards can be done via an API as well. And we do have, as part of our connectivity standard, our operating rules that's where we talked about, it talks in there about SOAP and RESTful as well.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Ask a question about RTPB, because I think that's such an exciting area, because it not only impacts the provider and the payer, but also the patient. I don't know, Terry, if you want to talk about the clinical advantages of the physician, the prescriber, having that type of information, in particular, that the patient, the patient out of pocket will be exposed at the time of the prescribing. So if it says, oh, it's going to be $500, better to find that out beforehand so they can prescribe an alternative, rather than the patient go to the pharmacy, see the bill, and then not fill the prescription.
Right, that is definitely one of the advantages or the objectives, as we wanted to, at the point of prescribing, provide more information so that a substitution, you will, for a formulary alternative, or even if there's something that maybe that they were going to prescribe that requires prior authorization, and which would have delayed getting the medication to the patient to go through that process. If there's an alternative that can be dispensed that does not require prior authorization, then that prescriber would know that up front and then could potentially make the substitution if they feel, clinically that it's reasonable to make that substitution. But yeah, we wanted to give them more visibility, as you said, to your point, that so that there's not abandonment when they get a shock at the pharmacy when they find out how much it is. And it may also be the opportunity, if they realize maybe that it is just an expensive medication, it may be the opportunity for them to know at that time with the prescriber to maybe look for coupons, or let them know, or maybe there's samples that they can give them, just to kind of give some information further up front in the pipeline before it gets to the pharmacy.
Yeah,
Well, and Rob, we had the NCPDP Foundation sponsored a grant with the John Hopkins Medicine. They have actually implemented the NCPDP real-time prescription benefit standard. And, in that situation, they found that on average, a person saved around $21, $22 by using the RTPB standard. And in one instance, a patient saved $1,000 because the pharmacy, the prescriber used the standard, found an alternative that was obviously much lower in cost than what was originally going to be prescribed. And other entities have also implemented a RTPB-like type of thing, and have equally found, the average savings to a patient is between like $20 and $25. The rate of abandonment at the pharmacy has decreased significantly because the patient knows up front it's going to cost me X dollars. There's this benefit. I don't have to wait for prior authorization, etc. So it's definitely something worthwhile that benefits the prescriber, it benefits the patient most of all, and it benefits the pharmacy because they don't have to deal with an irate, patient at their counter going, "Why does this cost $5,000?"
Yeah.
And also, if there's any coverage restrictions on the product, they're alerted to that, and they might need to switch in that case, which then the pharmacy doesn't need to deal with a rejection or have to, resolve that or call the prescriber back to make a change. So it's, again, trying to move things, upstream in the process.
Yeah, and obviously healthcare is moving more towards value-based care. You mentioned, Terry, that the prescriber has the opportunity to see what the cost is to the health plan. Let me ask you if fill status is also a potential game changer for value-based care. So the prescriber, sends the prescription, assumes the patient has gotten it and is taking the medication. Is fill status being used at any kind of rate that would be impactful, or is it still not being used?
Well, that's in our script standard. And that's the field notification. And there's actually a specific transaction called field notification. It's not widely being used. The foundation again has sponsored some grants with some organizations. And I think one may be completed and one is ongoing in regard to the use of it and the value of it. So we all know it's something very valuable. Hey, prescriber, your patient didn't pick this up at all, or it picked it up 2 weeks later, or whatever that time frame may be, versus I picked it up the next day or same day type of thing. So we're trying to get that, more widely used in the industry today, but again, there's been very low adoption around it.
No. Last question, if you don't mind, on PDMPs, because this nation has just a horrendous issue with opioid addiction. PDMPs have the opportunity for the provider to know in real time what's going on. Can you give us a status update? A while ago, I heard that prescribers were only able to get their own state's information. Has that been changed at all? Are they able to get sort of nationwide information at their fingertips?
Well, that has to do with legislation and regulations. That part of it, which says, especially for people that like live near a border, 2 states border, and I might go see a doctor, across the border, so to speak. So a lot of that has to do with state regulations and legislation in regard to what's allowed and not allowed. What we're trying to do in the PDMP environment is make it part of the prescriber's workflow. Originally, when a lot of PDMP was first developed, the prescriber had to go outside of the workflow. They had to go to a specific portal, and look up the, what's Margaret's medication history type of thing. So what we're trying to do is get it integrated into the workflow. So, you don't have that prescriber saying, I'm not going to go outside of this, it takes too long, blah, blah, blah. So we're trying to get it integrated as well as more standardized format across the nation to develop sort of a national PDMP database that's consistent throughout, that doesn't, that's part of the workflow, that doesn't limit a prescriber's ability to only look at the medication history that I might have in a certain state versus let's look at all of Margaret's medication history, type of thing. So it's progress is made, but probably not as fast as we would all like.
I appreciate that. And I want to thank you both for your excellent presentation, Margaret and Terry. Clearly, NCPDP is doing a lot of work and a lot of excellent work. We're very excited. You folks seem to be one of the leading edge folks, you know, with things like prior authorization and things like that. So continued great success. And thanks again for being part of this series.
Thank you all for the invitation, and thank you everyone that joined us today. Greatly
Wonderful.
appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us.
Excellent. And just as a reminder, we do have our MPA event November 9th from 12 to 4. I encourage you all to get involved there. And with that, I will close the event and thank you all for joining us today.